Hey there, friends. Tiffany here. Welcome to my quilting life. So, a few days ago, which was Sunday for me, even though it's probably further for you. Actually, it's probably a few days from a Sunday. Anyways, a few days ago was Sunday, and I was making these random blocks, all from 2.5-inch pieces, 2.5 by whatever, by whatever, by whatever. Anyways, go watch that video if you want to see what I was doing. It was literally a few days ago, but it could be a week ago's, you know? Either way, I was making these blocks, and I'm thinking to myself, this would make a good video. So I put my thinking cap on, drew something up. I know you can't even see what I drew up, but it is based on, and you'll remember by looking at these scraps, it's based on these two blocks. So I saw when I was making them and I put them on the wall, I was like, what would happen if we combine these two blocks? Obviously, I already knew what would happen, but maybe you didn't know. So we're going to take these two blocks and we are going to make a quilt. Now, spoiler alert, I've already cut everything out, but I'll tell you in the description the sizes you need to cut. I'll tell you what you need and all that, but it's also verbally going to be in this video because, well, I'm telling you everything. And I'm also going to, put the little writings on the screen. Anyway, for today's project, because I already went and did the math. Yay me. It could be wrong, but yay me. Anyways, for this project, you need one jelly roll. Obviously, this isn't in a roll, and I just grabbed a jelly flat. I just grabbed a jelly flat because, sometimes they come flat in a package like this, which is probably easier to store. You need one of these, and you're going to have scraps from it, or you can just make more blocks, but then you'd have to add more background. Either way, one jelly roll, 2 3/4 yards, 2 3/4 yards of a background fabric, which is also going to be your first border, and then 1 yard of a border print, which is your second border. So 1 yard for a second border, 2 3/4 yard for your quilt itself and the first border, and a jelly roll. I'm not using this. I'm going to use something else. But it's in the purple family. It's always in the purple family in my sewing room, isn't it? Anyways, so I'm going to go ahead and lay everything out on the table so that I can tell you what, and what is what. I know, I'm so weird. Anyways, let's get started. From your background fabric. Here's the background fabric, and these will be my jelly rolls. From your background fabric, you need 100 2.5-inch squares. So that means you need to cut 7 2.5-inch strips, 7 2.5-inch strips, and then subcut them into 100 2.5-inch squares. The second thing you're going to need is you're going to cut 7 4.5-inch strips off of your background yardage, and you are going to subcut that, turn it onto its side, subcut it into 100 4.5-inch by 2.5-inch rectangles. Okay, here it is, right here, just like that. Then you're going to cut 4, that's 4, the number 4, 4 6.5-inch strips off of your yardage, and you are going to subcut that into 50 6.5-inch by 2.5-inch. So from the background, one more time, you're going to need 100 2.5-inch by 2.5-inch squares. That comes from 7 2.5-inch strips. From 7 4.5-inch strips, you're going to get 100 2.5 by 4.5. And from 4 6.5-inch strips, you are going to get 50 2.5 by 6.5. All right, moving on. From your jelly roll. Now, you're not going to use all of the jelly roll. You're going to have plenty left over to do whatever with, or you can make more blocks. But we're going on the basis of making 25 blocks here. From your jelly rolls, open them up and cut yourself 100 2.5-inch squares. So mix it up. See, mine are all mixed up. Mix it up. Have fun with it. Just cut yourself 100 2.5-inch squares. Then mix it up some more, or just keep going on that same, open your strips all the way up or something, and then just keep going off of the same of that. You're going to cut 100 2.5 by 4.5. Okay? And then again, with your strips still mixed up and having fun, or just grab what you can or cut whatever you want in your 6.5s and 4.5s, whatever. Have fun with it. They can all be different. They can all be the same. We're going to go ahead and cut 50 2.5 by 6.5. So from the jelly roll, 100 2.5 by 2.5-inch squares. 100 2.5 by 4.5-inch rectangles, and 50 2.5 by 6.5-inch rectangles. Pretty simple from both of these, honestly. But the jelly roll is easy because you just open them all up, cut your 2.5, 4.5, 6.5. But you only need 50 of the 6.5 by 2.5. Both the 4.5 and the 2.5 by 2.5, those you need 100 each of, which is the same amount as this. So again, we're going on the amount of 25 blocks. What we're going to go ahead and do is we are going to make our blocks. You need for each block, because we're going to make big blocks here. Slide these over. For each block, you need 4 2.5 by 2.5-inch background and 4 2.5 by 2.5-inch jelly roll. From 2.5 by 4.5-inch, you need 4 of those per, and then from the 2.5 by 4.5-inch background, you need 4 of those. Then we're just going to set this stuff aside. From your 6.5-inch, you're going to need 2 backgrounds and 2 jelly rolls. And this all will make one block. The block that we are making will finish at 12 inches for one block. 4 background 2.5 by 2.5. 4 jelly rolls 2.5 by 2.5. 4 background 2.5, 4.5s. 4 jelly rolls 2.5 by 4.5. 2 backgrounds at 2.5 by 6.5, and 2 jelly rolls at 2.5 by 6.5. Sorry guys, I'm struggling with talking. It's not my fault. And I'm gonna just start sewing one block now. So let's take this over to the machine, show you how to make one block, and then I'm actually going to just chain piece all of these together. Then add these and add these. But we're gonna go ahead and make one block just to show you how it goes, and then go from there. So here we go. Take it to the machine. All right, first things first, we're going to grab our 4 jelly roll 2.5-inch squares and our 4 background 2.5-inch squares. Obviously, it's hard to see because I'm using white. We are going to sew these together. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we're going to make 4 little units. Now you can either go over to the iron at this point and iron these, but I'm just going to finger press for now. So we're going to press all of these. Everything that we do, we're going to press towards the jelly roll because that's the darkest one. But if your background is darker fabric, then press towards your background. All right, so I'm just going to open and press these all towards the jelly roll, just like this. And I'm using batiks, so they're really easy to finger press. Now, 2 of them I'm going to set aside, and 2 of them we are going to hook 2 of our white pieces to. So our white pieces, our background, 2 of the background that are 2.5 by 4.5. All right, so now we're going to put those with the background. Background on the bottom, the jelly roll cut piece on the top. So have your jelly roll on the top. Grab one of these, put it right sides together from your background, and we're going to sew that. Okay, and then we're going to do that with that second one, making sure that your jelly roll or your colored piece, if you're using scraps even, you can use scraps on this. This is actually what all these pieces are, is scraps. We're going to put that through. Should be exactly the same size. Now, we're going to have this on the bottom now. So put your jelly roll pieces on those other 2 pieces on the bottom and grab 2 of your jelly roll 2.5 by 4.5 inch pieces. So making sure that this is now on the bottom. Your jelly roll pieces on the bottom and your background fabrics on the top. Now we're just going to go ahead and put these right sides together. They're exactly the same size, see? We're going to sew that through. All right, so I'm going to snip these apart. And now I'm just going to go ahead and finger press towards my jelly roll. So on these ones, I'm going in towards the fold, but we want everything towards the jelly roll. I know it's, counterintuitive to press the way that it doesn't want to go, but we're doing that anyway with these. So I'm going to set these ones aside, and we're going to press these ones towards the jelly roll. Okay. Towards the jelly roll like that. All right, we're going to start with these because they're literally right here. So the ones where you added your jelly roll piece and not your background. So we just literally sewed those. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to take our other 2 background pieces. We're going to flip this one side. So now you have your background in the bottom left corner in front of you. And you're going to grab your 2.5 inch by 4.5 inch rectangle and put that on the side that there is a seam. Slide that one through. Should be exactly the same size. Mine may seem like it's off on camera, but it's only because I have pinked edges. And so that kind of, I just work those into the seam. All right. Here's these now, the other pieces that have the white going around it now. You're going to take and flip them to where your jelly roll piece is in your bottom left corner. And then you're going to take 2 of your jelly rolls that are 2.5 by 4.5, and now that side with the seam, we're going to attach 1 of the 2.5 by 4.5 inches on each of those. All right. 1 of the 2.5 by 4.5 on the side with the seam. Okay, so now I'm going to snip these apart. I have this all next to me, but I'm going to go ahead now again and press towards the dark. I'm just finger pressing towards the dark. I'm going to stack these up on the throat space right there, and then towards the dark on these. Okay, so now I have my jelly roll and then background jelly roll pieces. So on the top of that, I'm going to turn it 1 time. So you can see it's turned 1 time. So now my jelly roll color piece is in my top left corner, and the big 4.5 by 2.5 is at the bottom in front of me. So now we're going to go ahead and take your 2.5 by 6.5 inch pieces. Okay, and I want to switch this one for a different color because, all these seem to be the same. All right. So we have 2.5 by 6.5 inch jelly roll pieces. They're going to go on the side that has the seam. You know, not the other side that has the seam, but the side on the white or my background. So I'm going to lay that on there, as you can see on the camera. Sew that on, and then grab the other piece and sew that on. Now you should have the ones where your background is, if you're putting it in front of you and you're laying your background 2.5 by 4.5, that should be on the bottom closest to you. And your top left corner should have your background 2.5 inch square. Now you're going to take your 2.5 by 6.5 inch background pieces, and we're going to attach it to the side with the seam, or the side that touches the jelly roll color. That's the 2.5 by 4.5 inch piece. Sew that on. Again, your 2.5 inch, 4.5 inch, 2.5 by 4.5 inch jelly roll piece is on your right side. You're making sure you're attaching on the right side your 2.5 by 6.5 inch piece. Okay, I'm going to snip all this apart. And again, I'm going to press everything towards my jelly rolls pieces, which is my colored fabric. But if you're using a dark background fabric, then press towards that. So again, on the other pieces with the white on the side for me, I'm pressing in towards the jelly roll piece. I know it's weird to press towards a seam, and not a flat piece, but I want every seam in opposite directions because this next step requires that. All right, now you have your two different, or four same blocks, but two different styles. You're going to now take and lay them in front of you like this. Can you see that? All right, so you're going to have opposites. You're going to have your jelly roll that sits in the bottom left corner. Bottom right corner. And then underneath that, because you're making a 4-patch now, you're going to have your background that's in the top right corner. Then next to that, on the next row, the top one is going to have your background in the bottom left corner. And then your one below that is going to have your jelly roll piece in the top left corner. Okay? And I'm going to move my two of these around like this. That's much better. So now that we've sewn all the seams pressed out towards my jelly roll, for my case, I'm just going to slide this out of the way real quick. Start with those top two pieces. Everything should nest together. They should all be going in opposite directions. See that? So I'm going to hook these top two together. And then the bottom two. Get those top two, and then I'm just going to put the bottom two right sides together. My seams should nest beautifully because they're in opposite directions. And then press that bottom down, hold it, and sew it. Now they are hooked together. I'm going to leave them hooked together. I'm going to go ahead and press the top one towards the jelly roll color. So that one is going to go towards the left, and the bottom one is going to get pressed towards the right. Okay, I'm going to go ahead now and place these together, right sides together. And now every seam should be going in opposite directions. See that? Opposite directions for every single one of these seams. So I'm just going to hold it, put it under, come to the next seam, go, oh, that's correct. Come to that next seam, go, oh, that's correct. Until all of this is sewn all the way down. And the last thing to do is just finger press it out. Oh, actually, I'm going to take it to the iron, but for now, I'm just finger pressing because I'm literally right here. And there is our block. Can you see that? That's the block. All right, so now we're going to just go ahead and I'm going to set this aside. I have not pressed it yet, but this is what one block should look like. All right, so what I'm actually going to do now is I'm going to chain piece all of my background 2.5 by 2.5 inch squares and all of my jelly roll 2.5 by 2.5 inch squares. I'm going to piece all this together in a chain piecing motion. So I'm literally just going to slide all these through. Then I'm going to separate. One half is going to get put one way and the other half is going to be put the other way. And what I mean by that is one half will have your jelly roll piece on top and one will have it on the bottom, which you'll see when I put it together. You've seen when I put it together. So I'm going to go ahead now and chain piece all of these through, and then I'll show you what my two piles are going to look like and how I'm going to go about adding the next piece, chain piecing it, and the next piece and the next piece. So I'm going to go ahead and sew all these up. So I'll leave the block there for reference. We are going to take two equal piles. So I separated these equally. You should have had 96 pieces left of each of these. So to all of them together, because I made one block. But if you're going to chain piece the whole thing, then just separate it into two piles of 50. So now I'm going to take these two, and one of them I'm going to turn upside down, and one of them I'm going to leave right side up like this. Then I'm going to take half of my 2.5 by 4.5 like this and put them on this side, and then half of my 2.5, 4.5 jelly roll pieces. That was background, by the way. We're going to do half of the jelly roll pieces. I don't know what's half right now, but I'll figure it out when I get to the machine. And we're going to sew them like this and like this. So one is facing one way and one is facing the other, but we're always sewing it on this side. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the machine. I'm going to do all of my background first, and then I'll run all of my jelly roll pieces second. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the machine and sew these up. So again, I'm just chain piecing just like this. Just going to put them all through, and when I'm done, I will press every single one of these towards the jelly roll piece. So I'm going to just sew all these through. Once these are all done, I will move on to the other ones. So these ones, put your jelly roll piece to the top when you're sitting, in front of the machine. And then your other ones will put your jelly roll to the bottom and your background on the top. So I'm going to sew these through. Give me a second. Now that those with the white on the side is gone through, remember the next one is the jelly roll piece on the bottom when you're facing it, and then you're just going to put on the right side your jelly roll piece, and I'm just going to go ahead and piece all these through. I'm just going to make sure that none of these are the same color touching because I want mine to feel scrappy, which is what I'm doing with this whole thing. And like I said, you can do scraps with your whole entire project, which would be really awesome. But I decided to use these to get them used up. All right, so I'm just going to run all these through, and then I'm going to press these ones again towards the dark. I'm going to press them towards the jelly roll, and then the other ones with the white on the side, I'm going to press towards the jelly roll, which would be to the left. All right, after that step, I pressed everything to the jelly roll dark piece, not my background, and everything towards the jelly roll on this one, not the background. So the last and final step really is to take your 2.5, 4.5 background and place it on the seam side, which is right here, of every single one of these. And then on these, on the seam side, let's move that completely out of the way, you're going to put your 2.5, 4.5 jelly roll pieces. Let's just place one there. And then after we sew these, I'm literally going to stick these 2.5, 6.5, white touching the white, or my background touching the background. Same with my jelly roll. 6.5 by 2.5 jelly roll pieces. Jelly roll touches jelly roll on this side. So I'm literally going to run all of these through from this whole stack. Just going to go ahead and run all those through, pressing towards the dark. I'm going to run all of these through, pressing towards the dark. Then I'm just going to, which would be this, which I'm pressing towards my jelly roll, and then add my 2.5 6.5s on that side and this side. And I'm just going to run all those through. So let's get to these first and then sew these on, and I'll have chain pieced all of the partial parts for the blocks. So here we go. So I'm literally just going to take these right sides together. I'm going to sew them through, or not. All right, sewing them through, one right after the other until the whole entire stack is down. I'm also, because I'm keeping mine super scrappy, I'm just going to make sure that this piece and this are not the same fabric. So I'm just going to grab a different one and make sure when I put my 6.5s on here that those are different too, because I kind of like the super scrappy look of this. And again, you can do this with scraps. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and chain piece all these through and then move on to the next. All right, so I chain pieced all of these. I'm going to leave them on the machine, and then all I'm going to do is, again, making sure it's in the correct direction, and it is. I just like to sew at the seam first. It's like building a half of a log cabin. That's all this really is. We're just building on one side. So I'm going to sew these up by chain piecing them through, and then when I'm done, I'm going to press everything towards my jelly roll fabric, and with my other ones that have this on this side, I'm going to press towards the jelly roll fabric. I'm just going to finish all this up, and then we'll move on to adding the last two colors, which would be another one of these backgrounds for the background ones, and on the colored ones we'll add the colored ones, or jelly rolls. Alright, I'm going to finish this up now. Alright, so all of the pieces are pressed. The ones that start with the background, jelly roll, then background, those are pressed towards the jelly roll. That way they're all going towards the dark. And we're just going to add our 2.5 by 6.5 on this side. And I'm having this face you so you can see when you're looking at it, it starts with the background in the top left, and or the background in the jelly roll in the top left when you're sewing them. Okay, but this is you looking at it. So if you were sewing it, it would be this way, top left, like this. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead now, and these are pressed towards my jelly roll. I'm going to go ahead and attach all of my backgrounds to my block, which I will be sewing them this way. And then I'll come back and attach all of my jelly roll pieces to their blocks. And I'm just going to lay them like this so that I can do that in chain piece matter. And then this, like that, in a chain piecing matter. So I'm going to go ahead and start sewing these up. So here I am. I'm just going to go ahead and chain piece all these through again. If you are sewing it, your background should be in the top left corner. And then when you go to do the other one, it would be the jelly roll in the top left corner. That way you know you're putting it on the correct side. So I'm literally just going to grab these. They should be exactly the same size. And this is quarter block parts that we're making. And when I'm done, I'm going to press towards my background. So it's going to go, or towards my jelly roll. So it's going to go under, and then the other one will go towards the jelly roll, which will go out. So this one will go to the left at the seam, and the other one will go to the right. So I'm just going to sew all these through. And then once we have all of our quarter pieces, then we can start putting the blocks together. Which is very simple because we're going to chain piece all that through as well. So I'm just going to get this done, and then I'll do the other, which is my jelly roll piece that we're attaching to the outside. So this will just take a few minutes. All right, those ones are done. Again, when I pull them off, I will press them towards my jelly roll. These ones, on the other hand, once I sew them on, they're going to go on like this. I'm going to press towards the jelly roll this way. So now I'm just going to run all these through. And once these are done and pressed, we can put all of our quadrants together into blocks and start building this quilt. So give me a couple minutes, and well, actually you don't have to give me any minutes, because by the time it comes back I won't have paused anything. No time for you, because the next, the power of editing puts the next whatever right away. I know. Okay. Anyways, I'll be here in a second. Okay, so now the parts and pieces are sewn together. So these are the quadrants. And again, as in the beginning, I showed you how to make the block. It's very easy. We're just going to take these two piles and pretend that it's really fully in half. Split that in half and place it there. And split this pile in half and place it here. And then all I'm going to do is take all this to the machine. I'm going to sew these two together, then these two together. Then the next, after these are in the machine, blah, blah, blah. Then I'll sew these together, then these together, and so on and so forth until this whole stack is complete. I'm not really worried about two touching. So like this one right here could go down a little bit. There we go. There. See, so it's going to be mixed up no matter what I do. So I'm just going to go ahead now and sew top, then the bottom, then add another top, add a bottom. Once they're together in twos, I'll snip them apart from their piles of two. So every two I'll snip apart, and then they should already be ready to go, and open them up together and sew them together. And sew the long seam. So let's go over to the machine and sew these up. So like I was saying, I'm going to take those first two, and I'm going to put them right sides together. Again, those seams are in opposite directions, so they should nest right up. This whole entire project everything should land properly on top of each other. So there's those top two. I'm just going to grab the bottom two, like this, right sides together. Those seams again are in opposite directions. You can feel them. You can line them up, feel them, make sure they're nested right up, sew them through. So I'm going to leave those there because those are now hooked together. And when I snip everything apart, I will be going in twos. So now again, I'm just going to go ahead and grab the top two. And everything's lining up nicely. Then the bottom two. And I can see to the side of me that nothing really matches as I'm, going around, that these blocks are very well mixed up color-wise, because we don't want the same color, like literally right next to the other. Again, top two. Oh, see, like these are too close to each other. I'm just going to go ahead and grab that one underneath it. Yep. Put it together. It's just slight adjustments of the pieces where, not exactly the same piece going right by each other. Just mix it up a little bit. Unless you're doing it, all specific colors, then you don't have to worry about nothing. All right, now for the bottom two. And so on and so forth. So I'm looking right now at the pile, and I'm going to have to move a little bit around, but that's okay because like I said, it's not going to be perfect. All right, so I'm just going to keep going like this until it's time to snip them apart. So I'm just going to do top two, bottom two, all the way until I have all, since we made one in the beginning, I only have 24 blocks to make right now. So my last two didn't end all like, I hoped. But anyways, here I am at the end. So like I said, in twos. So these two is one block. These two, another block. Another block. Just separating them into sets of two. If you didn't know what I meant about that. Just takes a second to do this. So every two, so this one broke off from its counterpart. So I'm going to keep those up here so they don't get separated. Sometimes that happens when there's too much tightness pulling on the thread. It'll snip itself somewhere on my desk. So every two. And the last two. So here's the two. They would be hooked together, but they're not. Go figure. I'm going to press to the right. I'm going to press this to the left. And then all we have to do is stick these right sides together. All these seams are in opposite directions, even our center one now that we just pressed. I'm just going to line everything up. I could feel all those seams. Line that up, line this up, line that up, blah, blah, blah. You get the picture here. So there is a block right there. So I'm just going to set it aside to be ironed. And then we're going to do it again. So I'm going to press this one. Where's that? Right there. To the left. And this one to the right. Put them, they're hooked together so I can't mess them up. Right sides together. Nest my seams. Or just make sure they're like on top of where they're supposed to be, because I'm not really doing a perfect job at this because I'm making a video and I never take my time and do it right. I just make the video. So you can either take them apart and check them to make sure that you nested all your seams correctly, or you can just keep going until they are all done. So that is what I'm going to do, is I'm going to keep going until they are all done, snip apart, and then press them all. And it doesn't matter which way, as long as you press them all the same exact way, because we're going to be turning the blocks when we lay it out. So stay tuned to figure out how that's going to go. All the blocks are made. You should have 25 blocks that are 12.5 inches at this point. Obviously, like I said in the beginning, they finish at 12 inches. But maybe I didn't say that. I don't remember. I'm pretty sure I did. Anyway, so now I have laid this to where all of my seams are pressed in the same direction. So when I lay it out, I'm just going to flip it one after the other. So if I lay this right here, this first one, it's going to go right here. And then the next one, if I'm grabbing it like this, I'm going to flip it upside down. Now the seams are in two different directions. So now it's going to go right here. hoping I'm laying it right. Now this one, I'm going to grab it and it's going to go this way. As is, I'm not flipping anything. I should have enough room. And then this one is going to go upside down. Oh, and obviously, you know, I can't lay everything on the wall perfectly. So I'm going to scoot all this over because I need to go 5 across. 4, and we'll grab one more, which would be the right way. So just picking it up, placing it on the wall. There's 5 across. And now we're going to do 5 down. So same thing. The seams are going to be in opposite directions. So if the first one was right side, never flipped anything, this one's going to go upside down. So that way this seam is in an opposite direction from this seam. So that next one is going to go right there. This one's just going to go the way it was. This one is going to get flipped upside down. This one will go the way it was. Or not. We're going to keep that in the way it was pile. Only because they were too close together. Just like the ones that are previously there. This and this are too close together for me. But we'll see how it works out. Okay, this was the way it goes. So we're going to flip that upside down now. And place it here. Repeat. So if it started with the seam going up and now the seam goes down, the seam is now going to go up again. Now every single one of my seams, no matter which way I put it, will all nest because I pressed everything exactly the same when I got to the iron. So I always pressed everything one direction. That way when I flip it, everything is opposite now, even the side seams. So that should work out perfectly because all of these were pressed one way. So the up and down seams were all pressed towards the left and then towards the right, and then everything was pressed up. So if you flip it upside down, then they're opposite. So now we have seams that are going to nest throughout this whole entire quilt, which is a rarity in any video I've ever made. So now all we have to do is put it together and add some borders. So this is really easy. You literally just take piece 1 and piece 2, right sides together, nest that seam, and sew it all the way down. While it's right here, I'm just going to finger press this whole row to the left to start. And since I'm using batiks, it pretty much finger presses really easily. Okay, I did not move or adjust anything. I'm just going to grab that next one down and put it on. And I'm going to do this with every single row. And the next row will go with the seams to the right, and the next one back to the left, and then to the right, and then to the left. And last piece on here, and then we can sew the rows together. And at this point, I'm not even going to press. I'm just going to start putting the rows together. And I'm going to sit to do that because they're going to hang off the desk. And when it hangs off the desk, it kind of yanks at it. And it kind of, even though I'm using a seam guide, it takes my seams wherever it wants to go from letting it hang. So I'm going to do it the sit down way and hold my block or my rows properly on my lap while I sew them. All right, so there's all the rows from 5 to 1. So I slide this over, sit my booty down, and I'm going to put 5 on top of 4, just like this. And I'm going to sew, where's 4? Right there. All the way down this one side. The side that I just picked it up from. You could put it back on your wall or the floor or wherever you're designing it, but all right, so I'm going to find my seams because now not only are we nesting the center seams from the block to block, So the seams that are, I don't know how well you can even see down here, but we're nesting the block seams and the center of the block seams. Okay, so make sure to pay attention to that. They should all be in opposite directions though, because we flipped the block. So everything should match right up. So there's just a few more extra seams to do this direction. And I'm just holding them until I get up to the needle, because I really don't want to pin. If you've been watching me a long time, you know that I try to avoid using pins as best as possible. So if I laid this back this way, 5 was on the bottom and went on top of 4. So now if I open this up, I'm going to be going the oops, I knocked my thread out by being next to it. When I work next to the machine, I always unthread it. If I left a longer tail, I probably wouldn't unthread it. Oh my goodness. It's kind of hard to do this from the side. Let's scoot over. I'm going to hold this with my arm though, because once this falls on the floor, I won't get it back in the spot that it goes in. All right. Long tail. There we go. So now I'm going to go opposite. Okay, so I have this in my lap. Now I'm going to put 3 on top of 4 and start from this corner, because I don't want the smaller piece on the bottom. I want the bigger piece on the bottom. So I'm just going to go ahead, line it up, put the rest of it onto my lap. I'm going to hold this first seam and then nest that right up and hold it, line up my ends. Running over my own thread. I snipped it. Hello. There we go. Sometimes, you know, sometimes. Just doesn't do what we want. I always stop in the seam till I match the next one. Again, it's because I don't pin, so I'm just using my fingers as the pin until I get to it. And the seams should all be opposite. Again, because we pressed our rows opposite of each other as well. So if you're thinking about it, the one that's on top right now is row 3. So I'm coming to the end of that. And once I lay it in front of me, open it right up, then I'm going to take row 2 and place that on top. That way the smaller one's on top. Easier to adjust the bottom. I'm going to line it up, put it on my lap. See where you can see where standing would kind of be a problem with this, because it's going to fall off the desk as soon as I start going and aligning things up and making it work. Okay, come on. The fabric is not wanting to slide in my fingers. All right, first seam. We'll just line up this next and the next until it's all done. And like I said, once this is all sewn up and pressed, it should, that's a big should, be 60 inches by 60 inches. At that point, you can stop, or you can be like me and add the borders, which I gave you the yardage to do. Because you should, at this point, have a little bit more than a half a yard, just a little tiny bit more than a half a yard or about a half a yard left of your background fabric, which will be my first border. And then my second border is going to need 1 yard of fabric because we're going to do 4.5 inch finished, 5-inch cuts. Yeah, I keep thinking that I got to save the finished size of things. Whew. But we're going to cut 5-inch strips and 2.5 for the first border. Oops, I ran out of bobbin. Let's quickly change that out. Only takes a second. Grab another one. Actually, this is not 1 second. This is like 10 seconds, maybe 20. I don't know. It goes pretty quick. All right, let's find where it ended. Ooh, I gotta put that seam together because it ended right before it. There we go. And I don't even have to explain it, but I'm going to anyway. Again, open it up. Place that last row on top. Man, I gotta press all this, and I gotta move a whole bunch of stuff out of the way. I have a big ironing board, but instead of using it fully as an ironing board, I kind of use it as like storage. It's got another a work in progress on it, which I can't keep anywhere else because I didn't want to wrinkle my fat quarters. Oh, yeah. I got too many things going at one time. It's a good thing the other day on Breakfast at Tiffany's, I finished the whole quilt, other than quilting it, in one video. So at this point, I literally have a So Sunday project, this project, and my Tula quilt that I'm working on with my friend Eric over at Treasure Heart Creations on Saturdays. So I only have 3 works in progress. It's a miracle. Well, technically I got a bunch more, but those are just UFOs. But actively, I am working on 3 quilts. After this, only 2. Which I'll give myself a big clap. Yay! But, you know me. I'm going to start another one because that's just what I do. All right, coming up on the last. I nested that last seam, put the end of the block together. Now, I'm just going to press all the seams up towards the top of the quilt, or you can press them all down, however you want to do it. I'm going to go do that, and then we'll add some borders. All right, I even measured it in 3 spots, just to be sure. I said it was going to be 60 by 60. It's 61 by 61, because I always forget that extra ½ inch, you know, the unfinished part. So now I'm just going to fold this to the side real quick, place it over there, and we're going to take that last amount of like a ½ yard left, and we're going to turn it into 7, I'm pretty sure, 7 2.5 inch strips. Yep, that's 7 2.5 inch strips. No, 6. I'm reading the wrong one. 6 2.5 inch strips. So I've got it all lined up. I'm just going to make a straight cut. 6 2.5 inch strips. All right, so I'm going to place that out of the way. We're going to take all of these. I'm going to do my borders my way. You measure your quilt in 3 separate spots if you want to. Do it your way. And then hook that up. But like I said, it should be 61 by 61. So your 2 sides that you'd be putting on would be 61 inches. And then the other 2 sides would be 62, 63, 64, 65. It'd be like 66 inches, I think. Something like that. I'm thinking in my brain, out loud. My brain is thinking out loud. All right, so I'm going to cut the selvage off of all of these, and I'm going to do the same thing I do with every single border. I'm literally going to sew them on and cut them to size. That's just the way I do it. So I'm literally cutting them all and then sewing them all. Every two should be right sides together when I do it this way. And I think while we're sitting here at the machine, I might as well cut my border number 2. And you can forgo borders if you want this to stay smaller, but I honestly think borders just finish things off. Add that last and final touch and kind of enclose the quilt, you know, if that makes any sense. To me it does. What do you think? Does this make sense? The borders enclose the quilt. It's just that final touch. All right, so all of these, I'm not even going to press them because I don't really, you know, I just sew them and throw it to the side. And then we're going to take the 1 yard of our second border. I had exactly 1 yard of this. Oh man, I might be cutting myself short. Ooh, okay, good. I'm going to go ahead and cut my end off, straightening it up. Make sure I get all the layers here because, you know, it's kind of wonky on the other side. So I'm assuming this side is super wonky too. I'm going to cut 5-inch strips. Why? Because they're going to finish at 4.5. And that was the size of one part of the section. Because when you put two 2.5s together, you get a 4.5. That's what this will finish as. I'm going to make sure that it got the whole thing. Okay, it did. Woohoo! Turn this around and cut 5-inch strips. You should get 7 of them. Now, if you wanted to make your quilt bigger, just know you need to add more yardage. You will have lots of jelly, well, not lots. You will have a bit of jelly roll left over, so you can continue on with blocks. Just know you need to add more yardage. Tiny, tiny piece that can get cut and put in my extra stuff. How much is left here? 2 1/4? Sure, let's cut a 2 1/4 inch strip for my scrap bin. Actually, I'm going to move that way far out of the way because it's going to get knocked over anyway. Same thing with this border. I'm going to go ahead and stack all of these up, cut the salvages off at the same exact time. I have met a few people, though, that do not cut the salvages off of their batiks. I do, because it's just that little extra hardness along the edge. I just get rid of it, just because. This fabric does not go with the line, but the colors do. There's a lot of butterflies in the fabric that I used on the quilt top itself. This has giant leaves, but guess what? There are leaves in the butterfly fabrics. So, this looked good with it. And that's all I got to say about that. All right, so I'm going to do the same exact thing. Everything's going to be right side together as soon as I move this bottom piece out of the way. The next two are right sides together. The next two, so on and so forth. All right, so this is border number 2. I'm going to go ahead and just toss this on the floor next to me. I'm also going to do my best not to run over this white fabric for the first border with my chair feet, the rollers, because those are filthy. All right, move that out of my way. And we're going to attach this same way as I always attach borders. It doesn't matter what side. I'm just going to do one side, then the other. It's an exactly square quilt, so flick it up. There we go. I'm going to see where the seam is. It's facing the correct direction, so I'm going to slide it up in my fingers. You can cut it right now at 61 inches, and it should be exactly the size, but I don't really bother with that. I am my own long armor, so I really don't actually... I got to do a video on that someday, but I don't really actually have any kind of bowing ever. So I don't, stretching it, the 45-degree seam, you know, if you do a 45 angled seam, that also stretches the outside and can bow it. Lots of things can bow your borders. I don't show mine off a lot once I finish, you know, the quilt top. I usually just hang them up and just leave it at that. I don't really hold them up and show everybody. I have nobody to show because none of my kids live here anymore. So I don't have anything really falling apart on me. So I don't have to worry about that falling apart or stretching or anything. And I ran over my fabric with my dirty, you know, when you use white fabric, whew, I'm telling you. Earlier, the iron had dust, you know, the fabric dust gets in the the part between the iron plate and the plastic part, and it gets dust around that. Well, that decided to come out on the white fabric when I was pressing earlier while making this video. All right. As you've always seen, I just line it up at the end, straighten everything up. I don't stretch or pull or tug. I just cut it nice and straight. Then I go to the other side, because I always do side to side and then top and bottom. And then I also go to the other side of my strip. All right, making sure my seam is upright, and it is, or which would be right sides together. I have sewn the seam, and I got all the way down, and instead of ripping it, I just cut it and re-sewed the seam the opposite way. You can do that. No one said you couldn't. So, but if you come to that, especially on solid, it's with solid fabrics is the main time it happens. Or tone on tone, because I have my problems with tone on tone, as you already know. All right, once it's on the table, I just fold it up onto itself. I line everything up with the edges, with the fabric, with all of it, and then make my cut. I'm not going to go to the iron at this point. Instead, I'm just going to finger press my border towards the border. Find my end here again and start sewing down this way now. And when I get to the other end, I'll finger press that back too. And I came unthreaded. All right, here we go. As you can see, I'm not pulling or tugging. I'm just letting the fabric sit on top. And that also allows me to continuously sew longer than just a couple inches at a time. So I'm coming up on the end. Before I even get close, I'm going to come down here and finger press right here, and then sew it. Once it's fully on the table, I'm just going to fold it onto itself, lining everything up. It should be nice and square. Go ahead and find the other side. And the other side of this, so that way it's equal on both sides. I'm going to go ahead and finger press this back. It's falling off my shoulder. Make sure my seam is right sides together. So it's actually wrong sides up. And there we go again with a coming unthreaded. I'm starting off too quick is what I'm doing, I think. It's just one of those days. I want to get this done. It's getting late now. I feel like I've been doing this all day, but really I've taken a lot of breaks and done all sorts of other stuff today. Close to the end, I'm gonna just turn it up right here, press that seam. Once it's on the table, flip it back. My 6 strips only had this much left. All right, so this step I'm gonna go press, and then we'll attach border number 2, and the quilt will be done. Well, the top will be done. At this point, this quilt is 65 inches. I was off by an inch. Woohoo! You know, whoever said I could do math? Not me. All right, so I'm gonna go to the side that has the seam, which is one side, and then I'll do the other side, and we're gonna add our border number 2. And I'm gonna make sure that the seam is in the proper direction. I'm just gonna attach these, and then that'll be it. It's really that easy. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these on here, and then we'll hang it on the wall so you can see. All right, I'm coming up on the end, and I'll press it, and then we'll put it up on, actually, I don't even think it's gonna fit on the wall. I'm not sure. We'll put it up there anyway, just because. But it probably won't fit. I have a feeling it's like 70 something. I didn't pre-do that math. This is what was left over. So now, let's press it and see what it looks like. Ta-da! Here it is. Here it is. Here it is. It might look visually weird to some people, but to me, because it's right here in person, it doesn't. But when I was looking through the camera lens, I was like, interesting. But again, 2 blocks from my Sew Sunday that I made, put together, made this. So here it is. It came out 73 by 73, exactly on the dot. So that's what it is. You guys asked for smaller, but it still doesn't seem like I got very small. I mean, you can make 16 blocks instead if you want, instead of 25. I don't know. That's up to you. However you want to make it. It's going to be your quilt. You can make it smaller. You can make it bigger. If you make it bigger, then you'll have a queen or bigger. Because, yeah. But again, you'll still have some pieces left from your jelly roll. So you can probably just do 5 across by 6 down and have yourself a 73 by however long it would be if I added another row. But these blocks finished at 12 inches. This is the block right here, as you can see, and then the next one's right here, there, there, and there. It creates a secondary design in both directions, which looks really cool. I like it. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I know you can't see further down, so I'll kind of tilt the camera in a second. I hate having to do that, but I have no other way. This is a very enclosed room. It doesn't have much space for you to see the whole entire thing. I can't quilt it right now. I do have something else on the frame, so I can't do that. And then the next after that is a client quilt. So I kind of have no time to get this one done like I normally would for these videos. But most likely, because it's got butterflies in it, I'm going to quilt butterflies and leaves, I think. Don't hold me to it, but I might just do butterflies and leaves because I don't know. I just want to. That's because that's what I want to do. So there that is. I hope you enjoyed. See you in my next video. Bye, everybody.